you buy a Lamborghini if you were 7 feet tall? Would you invest money you can't afford to lose because CryptoGator007 on a Reddit thread said it's going to pop off? Now, many students take similar gambles with their education by following unqualified advice or chasing trends. That's why I'm going to reveal a simple 4-step decision-making framework that I've used to help thousands of students take back control of their lives and their educational futures. Now, 99% of people that I speak with either don't follow these steps or they don't do them in the right order. So in this video, I'll break down each step in detail. I'll also share with you some common pitfalls to avoid, provide you with the next small actionable steps, and offer 2 free gifts to ensure that you're making the right decision between the SAT and the ACT. So go ahead and cue the music and let's jump right in. Hey kids, it's JinTeacher. I'm a top test prep instructor with over 13 years of experience teaching the verbal section of standardized exams to over 7,000 students in one of the most academically competitive cities in the world. Now, I've scored in the top 99th percentile multiple times on the verbal sections of the SAT, ACT, and GMAT exams. I've also authored several test prep strategy books, participated in global teaching masterminds, and currently I'm launching an online education company while pursuing a PhD in mastery learning. Now, I share all of this not to impress you. It's not my style. I don't like to brag at all. But I really do this to impress upon you the idea that I'm no CryptoGator007. I'm just a passionate teacher who lives what he teaches and wants nothing more than to give you the clarity and the feeling of certainty to do what's right for you. Now listen, I know firsthand just how hard it can be to make such an important decision. A decision that can change the course of your life forever. Now, I used to stress out so much about these things. You have no idea. I needed to know everything about everything before making a decision. And still, I would constantly worry about whether I made the right choice. And in fact, things got so bad for me at a point that there were days where I couldn't sleep and felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt trapped. I felt like a prisoner of my own mind. And for you, right, the pressure to choose the right test, the overwhelming amount of information so-called experts throw your way about their unique magic formula that's guaranteed to raise your scores in days, all the noise you get from teachers, parents, other students, your loved ones, and even yourself about which test you have to take. I've heard and been through it all, and I've felt the pressure from parents, from students, and even from other teachers and bosses. I've dealt with the mom demanding that her child get a perfect score because, well, she's the perfect child. I've also gotten the call from the panicking student who's freaking out because his score dipped after the first week of classes. This all to say, you guys, that I've been there, I've done that, I've felt it all and overcome it all. And that's precisely why I spent over 2 years creating and refining a decision-making framework that's designed solely with you, the student, in mind. To be honest, I'm just really sick and tired of people pushing their opinions on others because they're motivated by profits. And I feel so sad seeing indecisive students being taken advantage of because they don't know any better. And my heart shatters whenever I see these beautiful, amazing kids who lose all hope and confidence because they feel like they're the problem, when the problem is really the system all along. Call me a dreamer, it's okay, I am one, but I'm also really world-class at this stuff. Right, you see, this framework, you guys, is based on my observations working with thousands of students at every stage of their test prep journey. I've seen it all. Students taking the ACT because their older siblings did, and students signing up for the SAT because their moms or friends told them to. Students juggling between the SAT and the ACT simultaneously, students switching back and forth between the SAT and ACT too soon and too often because of worried and fearful parents, students following college consultants' advice without a second thought, and students who never feel good enough because they're neglected by egotistical, biased teachers. But I've also witnessed incredible transformations and been a part of beautiful experiences when I've taken families and students just like you through this process. Now, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing a student's eyes light up with hope because they know they're exactly where they're supposed to be, and they know they'll continue to get better and better every day. There's no better feeling than to see a student's soul light up with joy because they achieved something they thought was impossible, and they're just so grateful for you. That's the kind of world that I want to live in, where students feel empowered and supported by their teachers and parents, right? Where teachers step up and pour their hearts, minds, and souls into what they teach because they know deep down that anyone can change, right? Where businesses stop putting profits over people and begin to put kids first, right? Trusting that profits will follow. You see, what I'm about to share with you is more than just a framework. It's a tool that cuts through all the noise and chatter, all the doubts and fears. It's a way to have laser-like focus on what truly matters. It's a step-by-step process that saves you weeks of confusion and chaos. And it's a system of thinking that gives you the clarity and peace of mind knowing that you've done what's important, not popular. Right? You see, through my work with over tens of thousands of students and parents, I've identified key patterns and insights from the most successful, as well as the common traits and behaviors almost everyone who failed to achieve their goals do. Now, the first thing that you need to know is that this decision-making framework is based on 4 main pillars. Now, these pillars are used by top decision makers across various industries and disciplines. So think military leaders, CEOs of major brands like Coca-Cola and Apple, right? Surgeons, just to name a few. Now, the 4 main pillars are foundational knowledge, experience and refined knowledge, communications, and decision and commitment. Now, each of these pillars has a clear action step that you can take. So, for example, step number 1 is to gather foundational knowledge. Step 2, build, experience, and refine your knowledge. Step number 3, seek out and set up meaningful communications. And step number 4, decide on a test and commit. Now, each step has key ideas and strategies nestled within it. So before I jump into step number 1, I need to tell you guys that I've seen so many students who are overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information and conflicting advice thrown at them in all different kinds of directions. If you can relate, say I. And I don't know about you, but when I feel overwhelmed, my mind gets foggy. My thinking becomes confused and unclear, and I tend to procrastinate because I feel stuck. Now, you do this enough times, you'll begin to feel powerless, right, and unsure about whether you're making the right decision or not. Right, now, this is a strategy that business owners use to take advantage of you because they want you to be confused. Because if you're confused, then you'll want to pay them to help you get unstuck. Right? So many students fall into this trap. Right? They would rather pay someone else or have their parents pay someone else to solve their problems for them rather than work with someone to solve their problems together. Right? But this is a super risky strategy, and it ends up in disaster almost always because you're always going to be in a state of uncertainty. You won't truly know that you're doing the right things. And the moment that something goes wrong, the doubt and the worry will show, and you'll end up losing trust in yourself, also others. So guys, just do me a favor and pause for a moment. Close your eyes if you need to. Now take a deep breath. I want you to think about a time when you felt overwhelmed. Is it when you had 5 different exams that you had to take in a week? Was it a 20-page paper? And also you were getting pressure from your parents to do your chores? Maybe your boyfriend or your girlfriend, right, was nagging at you, right, kind of giving you an ultimatum, telling you that they were going to break up with you if you didn't give them more attention. right? Just try to imagine a time when you felt extremely overwhelmed. Put yourself back in that moment for a quick second. How much space did you have in your head and body? Not much, right? I can feel myself kind of getting into that stage too. We'll shake ourselves out of it, we've all been there, and there's no judgment from me. I've been there so many times, and we all know that it's not a good place to be. Right now, guys, the best way that I know how to deal with overwhelm that has worked tremendously well for me, and I know will work well for you, is to focus on the next smallest step that you can take. Now, what that looks like specifically on your test prep journey is to gather foundational knowledge about the SAT and the ACT. Right, so foundational knowledge, you guys, is simply basic information about the two tests. Could be the format and the structure of the tests, the content and its topics, the timing, right, and so on and so forth. Now, you don't have to know everything about these two tests. At this point, there's just 3 foundational pieces of knowledge you'll want to gather, right? So 1, we have the differences in the subject content between the two tests. 2, the format and structure of the SAT and ACT. And 3, the timing that's allotted, right, on these two tests. Now, we don't have the time to go over each of these points in depth in this video, but if you're interested in learning about the SAT and ACT in detail, you can simply watch my video that's located somewhere in my channel. You'll see the title. It'll say something like the SAT versus the ACT. Now, in that video, I'll cover everything you need to know about the two tests. We're talking format, structure, content, timing, the similarities, the differences, and I'll even share my thoughts from my experiences and my opinions about which types of students are better suited for which test. Okay, so gathering foundational knowledge about the test is important. So now that you understand the foundational knowledge piece about the test, it's also important to get some foundational knowledge about yourself as the test taker. So we have foundational knowledge about the exam, the test itself, and you, right, the test taker. So it requires some external awareness as well as some internal awareness. Right now, understanding your learning style, your strengths, and areas where you might need a little bit more support is extremely critical. Right, so here's a few prompts and questions that you can ask yourself to help you to become a little bit more self-aware, right, if you're not self-aware already. Now, this is within the context of the SAT and ACT, you guys. Yes, just remember that. I've met a lot of students, right, who are really, really head smart. Like they know a lot about a lot, but they're not very intelligent when it comes to themselves, right? They don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they don't spend a lot of time thinking about, right? So for example, one simple sort of truth that I've realized in my journey inward, right, through my inner world, is that I'm not my thoughts. I don't always have to believe what I think, right? Because you have a lot of crazy thoughts, right? Like, oh, I want to throw that guy off the bridge, right? Or so on and so forth. You can separate yourself from your thoughts. Like you're truly not your thoughts, right? That's just one basic example of having this self-awareness, right? But a lot of students, though, because they're so busy, and it's no fault of yours, you guys, it's really not. The school system doesn't teach this, and if you're not getting this education at home, it's not your parents' fault either. My parents grew up traditional, back in their day when they were growing up, just think about their society, right? They were living in a world that didn't have internet, right? They didn't have the type of education, the quality of education, right, that we have, that we're so lucky to have today. A lot of the subjects that our parents kind of grew up learning, right, are just the sort of basic subjects that we have now. But we have so many more advanced subject areas, right? Like, for example, psychology wasn't necessarily a subject that was being taught, right, in a lot of schools 50 years ago. But it is being taught it these days, and it's a choice that you can take. Right now, I didn't even realize, so when I was growing up in high school, I didn't even realize or know what psychology was. I have a very close friend of mine. He's an amazing person. He's an incredible lawyer, an incredible human being. And he actually went to school majoring in one of the top universities, right, in America. And he chose to major in psychology because he thought that was, a psychiatry, right? A person like a medical doctor who could actually prescribe medicine, and so this is like the lack, and it's not his fault, even though it's a hilarious story. But it just goes to show you, though, right, that the type of education that even, my generation, and I'm 41 years old. I don't know if I should be disclosing this, but that's okay. But I'm 41, and so when I was growing up in high school, it was like 25 years ago, right? 26 or 7 years ago, so just within that short period of time, right, fast forwarding to now, right, education has advanced so rapidly. Right, so nowadays, I know that psychology is a sort of core subject area that's taught in a lot of schools. Back in my day, it was just taught at certain schools, like private schools. I had the privilege of going to, right, one of the top private schools in my state, and we did have it, but I had no idea what it was. Right, it wasn't really pushed on us or anything like that. So it just goes to say, you guys, this lack of self-awareness is not like, you don't have to feel shame or guilt, right, around this. You're not a bad person. Right? You didn't do anything wrong or bad. You just simply didn't know. So give yourself some grace, but now's a great time, right, to start learning about yourself. So a few questions and prompts that you can ask yourself within the context of the SAT and ACT is, I have 3 questions for you guys. 1, you can try to rank, this is a prompt, not a question, right? So rank the subjects or activities that you enjoy the most and feel most confident about. Right? So, some students love to read, right? Some students read, like I have my little niece. I think she's not so little anymore. I think she might be in 4th grade or something, right? But she loves reading. And this has just been a habit that she's developed or cultivated, right? Ever since she was probably like in 1st grade. I remember having like very intelligent adult conversations with her, right? When she was only like, I think 5 years old. Right? And we would do this cool thing where we would be like, that's interesting, right? When we didn't know something or we were curious about it, right? She's adorable. Her name is Hazel. Shout out to Hayes. But anyways, she loves to read, right? Because she's so well practiced in it, right? Maybe she might want to choose the test, right? That's more geared towards reading, right? That maybe has a little bit more challenging reading passages, right? Because the curve is going to be a lot softer, right? Meaning that the majority of students won't get as high of scores reading in the reading section because they have trouble, right? Reading more dense, right? Harder to read, more challenging types of passages. Maybe on the other hand, though, so maybe you love to read, but maybe you're a fast reader, right? And you can comprehend stuff, right? Even though it's at a basic level, right? So maybe you might not be a deep thinker, right? But you love to read, and you can read a lot, in a short period of time. So then in that case, maybe the ACT is good for you. You just kind of see where I'm getting at, though, right? Maybe some students love to write, right? They love like the word choice, right? They love the grammatical structure of sentences. They love varying their sentence structures. I know it's weird, but I enjoy it, I think that colons, and dashes, they're stylistic, they kind of show your character as a writer, and so I'm kind of a grammar nerd when it comes to that type of stuff. But, maybe in that case, the ACT is great. Now, why? Because the ACT has a whole section dedicated to English grammar, right? But the SAT only has maybe about 25 questions or so, right? That's combined with the reading section, right? Into one score. And so you got to start thinking about these things, so this is a great place to start. If you're a math and science person, like if you love solving science passages, right? Like if you love reading scientific terms like photosynthesis, right? And the pH balance of stuff, chrysanthemums, I have no idea, but if you're a science nerd like that, and I use the nerd in the best sense possible, because I'm a nerd too, like I geek out about all of this kind of stuff, and so I love it. But if you love science like that, and maybe the ACT is right for you, right? Because the ACT has an entire section that's dedicated to the science passages. So in those sections, you'll only be reading science-based passages, like based on science subjects like chemistry or biology or physics, right? And you might have a lot of graphs and charts and data, right, that you have to kind of use to answer questions, right? Versus on the SAT, science isn't an entire section, but rather you have science questions that are kind of weaved into the ERW, which stands for English Reading and Writing, right, section, as well as even the math section. And so these are just certain things, right, that you want to start to like gain some foundational knowledge about, right? Foundational knowledge about yourself. Now, so rank those subject areas, and activities, you guys, in terms of what you enjoy most, what you enjoy the most and feel the most confident about, right? Those categories could be like reading, and don't just like say, I like it, I don't like it, right? But think about like what type of reader you are. Do you like to read slowly? Do you feel like you like to read a lot? If you read a lot, can you kind of comprehend and remember the sort of basic storyline, right? The sort of big picture, can you remember details? These sorts of things are things that you want to start to gather more information about, right? Same thing with grammar, right? Grammar can relate to like the use of pronouns or verb tenses, subject-verb agreement, punctuation marks, transition words, like the stuff that you would use to write a clear message. And then also in the category of math and science, right? So those are the sort of 4 things that you want to think through. But don't just think about it in a very superficial sense, like, I don't like it. It's okay. Just think more deeply. Think more deeply. I know that students hate it when I use that T word, right? Think. I'm like, you got to think about this stuff, because your brain hurts, right? And I think that brain hurting is a great thing. Because when your brain hurts, it means that you're actually working hard. You're building new neural connections in your brain, which means that you're learning, right? So it might hurt the first time, but do it again and again and again and again. And then those connections are going to get stronger and stronger, and you're going to feel less pain, right? It's going to become easier for you to think. Your thinking is going to become more fluid, right? More smooth, right? That's just basically how your brain works in a nutshell when it comes to learning new things. So that's the first question or prompt that you want to be thinking about. Now, the second one is more of a question. So think about this, you guys. When you take long tests, like the ones that you have in school, right? Like, how do you usually feel? Do you find it hard to stay focused? Or do you get tired easily? So what about your stress and anxiety levels, right? So when we think about long tests in schools, you can think about, like, I would think more like sometimes final exams. Now, depending on the school that you go to, I don't know your school, but I remember when I was in high school, some of my final exams would be like 2 hours long, right? And some, like, I enjoyed it, right? I enjoyed it. Well, I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I was able to concentrate. I was able to build up that mental endurance because I was used to studying, right, for 4 or 5 hours, right, at a time. Was it the most efficient and the healthiest strategy? Probably not. You want to take breaks, right? Maybe every 30 minutes or an hour. But it's also important to be able to build mental stamina or endurance. Now, there's a certain group of kids, though, every time they feel like a twinge of stress, they'll want to run away, right? So they'll stop, they'll do something, they'll hop on Facebook, they'll look at a YouTube video. Hopefully it's mine. They'll do something, right, to want to run away from that feeling of stress, right? If that's you, you got to really think about this, right? Because the reason why I'm telling you, like, how do you deal with long exams? Can you stay focused and can you concentrate for long periods of time, right? Do you tend to, like, get a little tired or sleepy? Or some of you falling asleep when you're watching this video, What about your stress and anxiety? Are you able to control your emotions? Does this time pressure not bother you? When you look at the clock and you have 10 minutes left and you have 13 questions to answer, how do you feel? Do you start to freak out and panic and you can't control it? Like your mind's racing in 10,000 different directions and you can't bring it back? Because that's not all students, not all people. There's certain students who look at it, they start to get stressed, but they can control it, right? They can bring back their focus to what's right in front of them and then get back to work. So you got to really understand or know yourself in these senses, right? Now, why is this question, I think, really helpful? It's extremely helpful because there's a sort of big difference in the SAT and the ACT when it comes to the time, right? So the SAT is about 3 hours long. So you can think of the SAT as being about 1 hour longer than the ACT. So the ACT is, you can think about it like 2 hours and 15 minutes or so if you don't consider the essay. The essay is optional. And then the SAT is about a 3-hour long test, right? So it's about an hour difference, yeah? And you mix in sort of breaks here and there. You're looking at about an hour difference in terms of the length of these tests, right? So you can understand how the ability to stay focused for longer periods of time, right? Your ability to kind of deal with stress and anxiety levels, right, in pressure situations can be important, right? The other thing that can be helpful here is like you have less time, maybe about 20 or 30 seconds less time on average to answer an ACT math question, right? Then you do like an SAT math question. 30 seconds for a question, right? And so you got to really think about, right? Well, do you tend to get kind of stressed out, and can you not control your emotions and your focus, right, when you have time pressure? If that's the case, well, maybe then the SAT is the better test for you, right? You're starting to kind of see this, right? Now, this is just the basic stuff, you guys. So don't go, you don't have to like spend hours or days on this stuff, but just set aside about like 15 or 20 minutes. I like to set aside 20 minutes and then after the 20-minute point, I tend to kind of go a little bit longer, not because I have to, but because I want to. And the reason why I want to go a little bit longer is usually around that 20-minute mark of thinking. 20 minutes or so of like thinking or reflecting is usually you're getting rid of like the surface level stuff. And then once you cross that 20-minute barrier, that's when you can start to enter the deep stuff, right? But most people, right, I would say like 99% of people in this world, they're just surface level stuff, right? They don't go deep, when it comes to awareness about themselves, or understanding about something, is all. So set it for 20 minutes, reflect on it, write it down, and interesting thing can happen is after the 20-minute mark, right? A lot of you guys are going to start to have like deeper thoughts that you've never thought about before. They just kind of pop up, and that's kind of cool, right? That's a cool way that your mind works. And I can kind of get into that, but not in this video. If you want to know more, just let me know. But that'll be the sort of second question that you want to think about though. Okay. Now, the third question is, well, do you feel more comfortable working on a computer screen or using pencil and paper, right? Especially when taking tests. Now, why is this kind of important? It's important because the SAT is completely digital, right? So, and this was just announced in 2023. The SAT did a whole redesign, switching from pencil and paper exams to computer-based tests. And there's a lot of reasons that they say on the surface, and some reasons that we can assume that they don't say, but I think it can be kind of inferred. One of which I think is because a lot of people were cheating with pencil paper tests. You have a lot more control of security, in terms of security when it comes to computer-based exams. And so you can't, you don't necessarily have the access to the questions ahead of time like you do with pencil and paper tests, And so I think that's one of the reasons. Plus, now we're kind of transitioning into a digital world, right? And so everything is going digital. So this transition, I think, is a good one. Also, you can get your scores back more quickly. So there's an efficiency factor. You can cut down costs. I'm not exactly sure what the cost differences are exactly. Don't know everything about this stuff. I can look it up. So it's not important to me. But there are some reasons, right? There's a lot of reasons why they're transitioning to the digital test. But on the other hand, the ACT, if you take the ACT in the United States, right, then you have the options to choose between the paper test or the computer test. Yeah. Now, it also kind of depends on the state that you live in. But you just want to check the sort of requirements, right, in your state. Check the options that are available, right, in your region is all. Because I've heard that some regions or some schools don't offer, right, the computer-based test. They only offer pencil and paper, for example. But the ACT does say that in the U.S., right, students have the option of taking computer-based test or using pencil and paper, is it? However, if you're taking the ACT abroad, internationally, like not in the United States. So for example, if you go to Korea and you take the ACT there, you only have the option of the computer-based test, right? So in that case, maybe you don't necessarily have, right, a difference, between the SAT and ACT in terms of digital or paper. So that is something that you want. So you are a little bit more limited in that sense. But if you are a student in the States and you're watching this video, this is a question that you might want to think about, though. Because for me, it was a transition because I'm older, right? Now you know my age, secrets are revealed. I had a hard time when I was studying for the GMAT. I had a hard time in the beginning transitioning to a computer-based test. I think part of it was I have old man eyes, so staring at a computer screen for a long time would tire my eyes out, like would dry it out a lot. So I would have to always use moisture drops, right? Tears and stuff to keep it moist, prevent it from kind of hurting or getting tired, is it? But that was a transition that I made. I didn't have a choice in the GMAT to take it using paper and pencil, which I would have chosen for sure. I definitely would have, because I like to kind of take notes on the piece of paper too, versus just being on the computer screen. You have the option of like highlighting and stuff, but it doesn't feel real. It really does. It feels like you're wasting a lot of time when you're doing that. So it was a difficult adjustment for me. And even using like, a whiteboard, right? We had the option of using a whiteboard to take notes. Like that felt very disconnected because I had to look up and look down and look up and look down. And that was kind of a tricky transition. I kind of get motion sickness, easily. And I remember the first few times I was feeling kind of dizzy and woozy, and so these are certain things that you just got to know about yourself, right? When it comes to this kind of stuff. The pencil and paper is pretty cool is because you can kind of take notes right next to a paragraph, right? You can kind of write within the section. So now your eyes aren't moving around a lot, but they're staying within one confined area, which makes it a lot easier for you to focus. At least it did for me, and so that's like my experiences, right? Kind of taking the computer-based versus the pencil and paper exam. But yeah, these are the sort of questions that I think are good starting points to build foundational knowledge about yourself, right? Now, knowing yourself very well in these areas can help you to choose a test that best aligns with your abilities, right? So we talked about this a little bit ahead of time, but that's all good, right? So we just kind of hit all these examples again. So if you absolutely love math and are incredible at it, well, maybe the SAT may be the test for you, right? Because the math section makes up 50% of your total score compared to just 25% of your total score on the ACT, right? So going a little bit deeper here for some of you guys is the SAT. Think about the SAT as being scored just based off of two sections, right? Two categories. So the first category, we call it ERW, right? English, reading, and writing. So they actually combined the reading and the writing questions into one section. Versus in the past, just before 2023, they had a separate reading score, a separate writing score, and a separate math score. So you had three categories, but now we only have two, right? And then the other category is going to be the math category, right? So your math score is out of 800. Your ERW score is out of 800, and so the score that you get in math will make up 50% of your total SAT score. So if you love it, you're incredible at math, you're one of those Olympiad guys that got like those gold medals, which is mind-blowing to me. Maybe the SAT is right for you, because you'll be able to deal with more advanced questions, right? In the adaptive tests, the harder level test, and you're gonna, you're gonna outshine or outscore, right, the majority of the people taking the test. On the ACT though, right, the ACT, kind of think about it in four categories or sections, right? So 4 buckets of scores. So first we have like the English section. So think of ACT English as like grammar, right? Then we have ACT reading, right? Think of reading like the reading comprehension passages and questions, like main ideas, details. Then we have the math and then the science sections, right? So we have 4 separate sections. Each of these sections, you get a score out of 36. And then your scores are combined and then averaged to create what's called your composite score. Don't need to get into the nitty gritty. Just think of your composite score as like your ACT score. So when people ask you, what did you score in your ACT? You're not going to give them your ACT math score. You're going to give them your composite score, right? So in that sense, kind of understand that the math score only makes up 1/4, right? Or 25% of your total score on the ACT, and so just kind of certain things to think about, right? The other thing that we talked about is if you have trouble controlling your emotions and your focus under time pressure, then maybe you want to think about taking the SAT, because the ACT gives you much less time on average to solve a question than you get on the SAT. Okay, now here's an extremely high-level tip for you guys I think is super important. Okay, hear me out here. Just play with me for a second, okay? Make sure that you're completely honest with yourself. Now just, you're like, oh, but I am. No. Just make sure that you're truly, radically transparent with yourself. Okay, like you have to be willing to kind of stare nakedly at your inadequacies. Like just stare truthfully right in the areas where you're not good. And I know we all want to believe that we're amazing, and we all are, because you guys are incredible. But now's not the time to let your ego get in the way of your success. I'm telling you guys, I tell this to my students, and I can do this because it's coming from a good place, and I want to tell it to you guys too, because it's really coming from a place of love, and a place of like truth, because I've been there. I've let my ego kind of consume me at times. And let me tell you guys, your ego is going to be what gets in the way of you and what you want to achieve. That's it. The only person who's going to get in the way of between you and your goals is going to be you, right? You're like, how can that be? How can that be? Right? Well, we have different parts of us. One of those parts of you is called the ego. Some people call it like the sort of small self, but it's that little voice inside your head, right? That's always saying like, I'm better than this guy. I'm the best in the world, right? Or, hey, screw you, man, right? Like, what are you doing to me? Do you know who I am, right? That's like your ego, right? It's like that prideful one. But your ego is also the one, right, that wants to protect you and keep you safe, right? So sometimes your ego is that little voice in your head saying, you can't do it, like you should just give up, right? Like you're going to fail and look ridiculous in front of other people. You're going to embarrass yourself. Think about how much shame that's going to give you. Think about how many people are going to laugh at you, right? Your ego wants you to play small, but the ego's job is simply just to protect you, right? So we don't want to get mad at our egos, right? The more that we kind of resist our egos or yell at it or just like, we implode, we explode from the inside, right? That's what implode means. It's unhealthy, is all, so you got to let go of the ego. I tell people, and this is true, like I would say, I'm still working on getting rid of my ego, but 6 years ago in 2018, towards the end of it, right, that was when that I decided to throw away my ego, just let it go, just kind of throw it in the trash, just leave it off to the side, is all. I've learned to kind of appreciate it nowadays. I've learned to kind of like listen to it, like hear it, but not listen to it. You know what I mean? So I still hear those voices saying like, hey, do you know how many people you're going to get laughing at you in this video? Do you know how many like thumbs down comments you're going to get, right? Whatever it is. What if, only like 10 people are going to watch this video? Like all those voices are still there in my head, but you don't have to listen to it, right? Because again, going back to it, if you're self-aware, right? Like, that you're, one of the greatest realizations that I had in my life is that I don't have to believe all of the things that I think. Because some of those thoughts, they're not mine. Some of those thoughts, right, are just intrusive thoughts. Who knows where they come from? Could come from any source, right? Could have been from your parents, could have been from some random stranger, could have been from a teacher, could have been from your siblings, could have been from your friends, even your best friend. Maybe it could have just been a stare that somebody gave you, But the realization, the self-realization that you are not your thoughts and you can separate from it is an incredible feeling. It's extremely liberating, is all. So you don't want to get mad at your ego, right? But you don't have to focus on it. You can hear it, but you don't have to focus on it, right? Have you guys ever been into a room, right, where you have a bunch of, it's like a party. I know I'm using the party word, which is dangerous with high school kids, but imagine you're at a party only drinking water or, non-carbonated beverages, okay? So, you got music playing, you got 100 people at the party, right? Everybody's kind of talking, right? But you're in this small group of a small circle with 3 or 4 people, and you're actually having a conversation with people, right? You're talking to each other, and you can actually hear, right, what that person's saying. You can understand it, and you can respond to it, right? Even though you have all this other noise around you, you have Drake's music bumping in the background. Do you guys listen to Drake still these days? I don't know, right? But you guys have the music bumping in the background. You guys have other sort of groups, right, kind of shouting and screaming, but you're able to kind of it's not that you're resisting this stuff, right? It's not that you're just oh, I'm so mad. Can you just shut up? I want to listen to It's not that. It's almost like you're just open to everything, but you're focused on the single point, right? That's exactly the same thing that goes on in your minds too, though, right? So imagine just your mind's at a party, right? You have a bunch of little voices in your head talking as those different groups of people, right? The different music and stuff that's playing. But you don't have to give it your attention, right? You don't have to get mad at it either. You don't have to complain or blame about it either. You don't have to judge it as well, You can just let it be what it is and still focus on what it is that you want to focus on, right? You got to let your voice, the voice that you want to focus on, be louder, right, than all that noise that's around you. It's really what the trick is, is all. So that's the ways to kind of deal with that, right? So this all goes back to that highest level tip, guys, and I cannot stress how important this is. This is why you hear me kind of beating this horse, right? The horse is already kind of perished and dead, but I'm still beating it, right, with this stick, and I'm still beating it because it's that important. Is you're going to be the one who gets in the way of your success, right? So make sure that when you are kind of reflecting on you as a person or a test taker within the context of tests, like standardized tests, right? Like the SSAT or the PSAT that a lot of you guys have taken, right? Then really, you'll start to you want to be completely honest with yourself here, okay? So that's that. So like I said, you guys, now's not the time to let your ego get in the way of your success, right? Now's the time to focus only on what matters, right? And that's choosing the test, right, that best suits you. So look at yourself objectively, right? There's no need to feel ashamed, no need to feel worthless. You want to make sure to set all of your emotional baggage aside. I always tell my students that, right? Did you leave your emotional baggage outside the door? Did you bring any drama into the classroom? You want to leave all that stuff outside. It's okay if you have it. We all do, but don't bring it with you. Don't carry it with you wherever you go. Think about how heavy it is, right? To carry 3 suitcases, everywhere you go. Think about that as being your emotional baggage, right? That's the drama, right? That's the complaining, the blaming. It's too hot in here. There's not enough time. Right? The guy next to me smells so bad. Right? The proctor looks really funny. Right? Whatever it is. My pencil broke. Construction is going on outside, so on and so forth. Are all those reasons justified? Sure, but it's all drama, and there's no need for it. Why not? It doesn't serve you. It doesn't help you to get towards your goals, right? If you spend your entire life complaining, you're going to spend your entire life complaining. You're not going to get anything done, right? So set all of the drama and the emotional baggage aside and just focus on what it is that you have to do. And that's really to maximize your potential on these tests, right? So the first step of doing that, though, is awareness, right? Awareness of the test, awareness of yourself, and then from there we can kind of move on, right? Without drama, without your ego, it's just ruthless objectivity and honesty, though. So, guys, from my observations of countless thousands of students, those who are able to identify their strengths and weaknesses the fastest and approach this test prep experience with curiosity and even joy and a growth mindset, these are the guys who are able to make the quickest gains on the test. It's incredible. It's incredible how true this is. So I've seen over 7,000 kids, you guys. Just imagine that for a second. Okay, so the average, to give you a little bit of context, the average teacher in a 30-year career will work with about 3,500 students, the average teacher. 3,500 students in 30 years. In the last 14 years, I've worked with double that. So think about that, right? So I always joke around with people. I say, hey, I've worked with, I've had basically 2 teaching careers, right, in half the time. So it's almost like, it's kind of strange. I don't even know how to think about that, right? It's almost like I have 2 teaching careers in half the time. So it's almost like I had 4 teaching careers or something. I don't know. But it's just all to say is I have I'm just so blessed and so grateful to have this unique experience or unique insight into the human experience, so, and it's incredible how true this is, right? I've seen them all. I've seen all types of students, not just ability levels, right? But also like personality-wise, their traits. I've seen students who thought they were like the smartest students in the world. They had these huge egos. Seen students, though, who are extremely, extremely bright, but think they're worthless. And I've also seen students who are extremely gifted, right? And I think they appreciate that about it, but it's just that they just have this love of learning. They have this curiosity, right? This childlike curiosity and wonder about learning. And these are my favorite students to work with. There's so many students that come, I get goosebumps every time I think about this. There's these students that come to mind they're so amazing. They're so gifted, and they're so appreciative of learning, of teachers. They're so respectful. They're looking up at you like this, and they're so appreciative and respectful of what you're saying, nodding their heads, giving you feedback, versus other students who are like this, or some students who are like this, right? So there are different types of students, I've seen them all. I categorize them. There's a handful of students I can tell you just off the top of my head, right, that fall into that bucket of just love to learn. They're super respectful of teachers, they're super appreciative of knowledge. Like I have a bunch of names that come to mind, right? I have Sue. I have Alina. I have Yejin, Yeju. I have Daniel. I have Ryan. Ryan's a 6'2" freshman from Texas, right? These guys are just like incredible people, though, but that's really how you want to approach this, you guys. Now, I know I'm working with you through just a digital screen right now. I can't actually see you live. I wish I could. I'd love to build that relationship with you, but I can't. Not right now, at least. But that's how I want you to approach this test. Like, if you really want to listen, guys, if you're totally committed to brushing up against your potential on this test, the fastest way you're going to do that, right, is to let go of that ego and to approach every learning opportunity, every lesson, every handout that you read, every test that you take, every question that you answer, every question that you're confused about, every question that you get wrong or even right. You want to approach everything with just this sense of curiosity and just have this learner's mindset, right? Of just like you enjoy it, you appreciate it, right? For everything that it is, its challenges, right? Its difficulties, its beauty of how the sentence is constructed, the trickiness of the answer choices. Those are all things, right, that you can truly appreciate, And once you have that sort of attitude of appreciation as opposed to frustration, like, I gotta do this again, not again, once you kind of trade your frustrations for appreciation, your whole life changes, and that's exactly how I want you to think about, right, this whole test prep experience that you're about to embark on. So step number 2, you guys, is all about building experience. Now, you're going to want to take what's called a diagnostic test. Now, some call it a level test, but all you have to do is just think about this as like your starting point, right? This is your starting point, okay, is all. Now, a helpful tip I can share with you here is that you should never, ever pay for a diagnostic exam. If you're asked to pay for that level test, what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to run as far away as possible from this institution and don't look back. Guys, from my experience, an academic institution the charges for a diagnostic test will charge you for any and everything. Now, the standard practice is to provide this test and a consultation for free. Now, there are several places you can go to take a diagnostic exam, the first of which is the College Board's website. So a lot of you guys probably already have an account there, but if you don't, you're going to have to sign up for an account and download Blue Book. So Blue Book is College Board's digital SAT platform, like their software. It's how you actually take the digital SAT test. Okay. Now, the good thing about the College Board's test is that it's free, and the exam questions are relevant to the types of questions you'll see on the actual test because they're created by the same guys who create questions on the real test, right? The actual SAT test makers. But the downsides of using College Board's tests is that they don't offer any consultation, and consultations can be extremely valuable, right? They can provide you with guidance and insights about your test, your results, right? Also, from my observations and talks with a lot of different students, the level of difficulty for the questions on many of College Board's free exams that are available, I think there are 6 of them that are available on College Board's website, those questions tend to be a little bit easier than the level of difficulty of the questions you'll get on the actual test. Plus, College Board's score report, the analytics, right? The report that you get based off of your test, that report is very vague. I don't think it's very clear, nor is it very helpful for you. It confuses the heck out of me, so I don't know how it can help you guys out in terms of easily figuring out important patterns that can help you guys to make very quick fixes and gain easy points, right? So again, what I do when I teach my classes is I don't use the language that College Board uses. They like to use like very broad and academic-y words, like they want to sound sophisticated, right? So they'll use like craft and structure, right? Information and ideas. Tell me about that, guys. So if you get 60% of questions right based on information and ideas, how does that help you guys out? Like, what are the question types that relates to information and ideas? You're like, isn't every single thing that I'm doing an idea or information that I'm getting? It doesn't help you, right? So you want to be more precise with your language when you're actually looking at your score reports or analytics. So instead of looking at information and ideas and you're getting like 18 out of 36 questions right? That doesn't help you at all. Imagine if you had a diagnostics or analytics page that said main idea questions, maybe 4 out of 4. Detailed questions, right? Like based on facts in the passage, right? Maybe you're getting 4 out of 7 right on this. Right? What about transition questions as opposed to rhetorical synthesis, right? What about main purpose, right? What about organization of the passage? So this type of language, when you actually use language that's more precise, it allows you to actually do more with that information. Now, whether or not the College Board is doing this on purpose, I don't know. I don't really care. I don't want to judge them. But it is what it is. And based off of what I see, right? And I grew up speaking this language. It's not my first language, but I learned it. But I've been teaching this stuff for 14 years. And when I look at that, when I look at the College Board's analytics, I don't know what it says. And I'm getting a PhD in mastery learning. So I don't like to use language that's very vague. It doesn't really help you at all. Right? So that's, I think, another downside of using College Board's diagnostic test. It's, the good thing is it's accurate, but the drawbacks are no free consultation and the score report isn't very helpful. Is it? Now, the second thing, you guys. So the second option that you have, other than just College Board, and I'm really excited to share with you this, is because it's something that I've kind of put together with 2 education technology companies. I think, we use fancy terms these days like ed tech companies. But these are 2 ed tech companies that are based out of India. Incredibly bright, incredibly gifted people, incredibly amazing products, features, and services. But I've partnered with 2 ed tech companies And what they're going to do is they're letting me give away free diagnostic tests to anyone in my community, right? So anyone in this community of students and teachers and this type of stuff, they're giving free diagnostic exams. And this is something that I just have to say, full disclosure, is I don't make a single penny when you sign up for a free diagnostics test, right? Like, I just know how important the test is to students, especially Korean students, because I've worked with them for 14 years, but it's just important for any student or family, right, who wants to better their educational path or their journeys. They want to maximize their potential and see how far, see what schools they can get into. If you jump SAT scores 100 points, right, it opens up a whole new option, a whole new list of, top, better tier schools, right? And so, hey, taking diagnostic exams, right, getting access to these tests is extremely important. And basically, I just want to provide you with as much value as possible for as little as possible. So try to give you guys all this stuff for free, not everything, right, but as much as I possibly can. Because I want you guys to think, man, if JinTeaches free stuff is better, right, or as good as everybody else's paid stuff, right? It makes you kind of think a little, right? Anyways, y'all, I've had multiple talks with the founders of both of these companies, and they believe in me and my mission. I'm so grateful for them. They believe in me and my mission. My professional mission, you guys, is to create life-changing educational experiences for millions around the world. Like, I want people anywhere. I don't want them to be confined by geography, restricted by where they're at. They don't have access to good teachers or good resources or good schools, good education because of where they are. We don't live in that type of world anymore. We don't have to be confined to that type of world, right? Even those who don't have a lot of financial resources, want to make high quality, right? Top tier, top 1%, right? Educational, materials, right? For those who can't afford, right? Like the $1,000 products and things like that, So I want to even the playing field here by creating these educational experiences for everyone, millions of students around the world, And so they believe in that mission, and they wanted to support me and my community, which is you guys, or soon to be some of you guys, in taking these steps to accomplish that mission. And it is a mission, you guys. I use that word very intentionally. I'm on a mission. To raise the consciousness level in education in this world, And as long as what I know about consciousness is when one person raises their consciousness level, then the whole world raises their consciousness level. So just want to say a huge shout out to Deepak and Niraj at Edison OS and Piyush at LearnQ. These guys are like the founders, C-suite guys. These guys are incredible human beings, and I feel like we're just kindred spirits, brothers on the same path. But I do want to tell you guys that free access is limited. So we can't give everything away for free, right? And we haven't set an exact number yet, but I think it's going to be like maybe 200 or 100, not exactly sure, at the time of making this video. So make sure that you sign up fast. Now, all you have to do to receive your free diagnostic exam is just 3 simple steps. So 1, subscribe to this channel. You can actually see, right, who's a subscriber when you sign up for the exam. Want to check that against that. Shout out Edison OS and LearnQ in the comments below. And 3, check out the link in the description below this video to sign up for and receive your free diagnostics test. Right, so you're just going to have to enter, I think, your name, your email, your parents' name, and then phone number. Then you'll get free access. And it's not just like a paper test. Like, you guys got to see. the platform that they build. It's incredible. It looks and feels like you're taking the digital SAT. So you sign up, then you can compare it, right? Just go on to College Boards, download their Blue Book app, and then try out a test, and download Edison's diagnostic test and try that out. It'll look and feel exactly the same, which is pretty cool, right? So there are a couple of things to note here. Edison's diagnostics test is a full-length diagnostic exam, which means it'll be 3 hours long. So you want to make sure that you block out that time, right? So block out about 4 hours of your day so that you can give your full focus and attentions to it. Okay. Now, when I mean full focus and attention, you guys, I mean full focus and attention. Put your cell phones aside, right? When you have your browsers open, thank God that, these platforms go full screen and you can't exit out of it, but don't have any other side screens on like your iPads and your iPhones while you have music blaring. Don't do that. Okay, don't have roommates in the room, right? Just be by yourself in a quiet environment. If you're serious about getting the top 1% score, you're going to want to try your best, right, at everything that you do. Starting with the diagnostic exam. This is your starting point. And guys, the thing is, with the starting point is if you don't know where you're currently at, right, how can you get to where you want to get to? Right, so if you just look on a map, right, if you want to get to Chicago, and you don't know where you currently are, how do you know whether to go left or right or north or south? So you have to really know precisely where you are in order to get where you want to get to. Okay, so take this stuff really seriously. Now, on the other hand, LearnQ's diagnostic is a shorter test, and that's because, and this is what's so cool about LearnQ's platform, you guys, it's run fully by AI. I don't mean Allen Iverson, the basketball player. I mean artificial intelligence, and it's true artificial intelligence, right? The generative type, right? Not just algorithmic stuff, right? That's called artificial intelligence. Okay, so it's run fully by AI. So it's able to kind of diagnose your results faster, and that's great, right? For busy students who don't have much time. But you want to think about it, right? Do you want to try to get this sort of full test experience, to determine your starting point? I would say my personal opinion is the Edison's test will be probably more precise of a starting point because it's the full length exam. So like maybe you're great at concentrating for 1 hour, but maybe the second and third hour, or maybe the second hour, you have a hard time, right? So if the LearnQ's test is only like an hour long and you do great on that, right, that might not be quite as accurate, right? But it's still a great option. It's an amazing option for students who have an extremely busy schedule, right? You're always on the go. You don't have a lot of time, right? So take it for what it is. Take it for what it is, you guys. Yeah. And decide then. So now, guys, these exams, they will run out fast. Okay, they will run out fast, so make sure that you act even faster, right? So in fact, you guys, I want you guys to pause this video right now and go ahead and sign up, right? So seriously, that's how limited these things are going to be. Okay, now again, it's 100% free. You're not going to be charged to take this diagnostic test. And you guys, as an added bonus and a gift to you, you can sign up for a free consultation with me after taking the test. You just want to make sure that a parent is there, right? Your mom or your dad, whoever helps you out with your schooling stuff. And I can help you guys to analyze the data. I can provide you guys with a personalized study roadmap for the SAT and answer any questions that you might have, right? So if you're interested in taking that diagnostic for the SAT, I would definitely go ahead and sign up as soon as possible. Okay. Now, on the other hand, let's talk ACT. So if you're interested in taking a diagnostic test for the ACT, you can sign up for a free ACT exam on ACT's website. So they offer a full-length test, which includes the optional essay. The other option that you can do is you can click the link below. It'll say ACT link, right? ACT free diagnostic test link or something like that in the description below. And here I'll send you a free full-length test, right? Along with, so you might be like, well, what's the difference then? Why don't I just go on ACT's site, right? Well, there's a couple of extra things that I wanted to add, gifts to you guys, for you guys, to help you on your ACT journey. I wanted to add in an ACT English strategy book, call it like a study guide or a strategy book, that I wrote. Currently, it's in the proofreading and editing stages, and it's unreleased as of June 2024. So think about it like this, right? The good thing is you'll have exclusive access to it, right? But the not so good thing is it won't be like the pretty final version, because there's still some editing and proofreading to be done, right? But it is free, right? It's my gift to you for sticking with me for this hour and signing up for a community. And it provides you with 98. I think this book, I really poured my mind and my heart into this book. Oh, you have no idea. Neck pains, neck strains, disc protrusions in my spine, all of this stuff, right? But I really, really gave it my all a couple of years ago writing this book. And what it does, and I'm so proud of this, I love it, is that it provides over 98% of the concepts, like the precise concepts, grammar rules, English concepts, and the question types that are tested on the actual ACT test, And this book, you guys, it's the exact game plan that I've used to help hundreds of students score in the top 99th percentile in the test, right? On average, you guys, 80% of the students that I teach, they'll score in at least the 90th percentile on the ACT English test. And how do they do that, though? Well, one of the core reasons is this book. And so the way that you want to think about this book, you guys, don't judge it by its cover or how, ugly it looks. It's not designed pretty. I don't have a design eye. I'm getting a little bit better and better at it, but I don't have that design eye for it. I just have the content, right, that I wanted to share with you guys. And so I'm letting my ego go. So let your egos go and don't judge me, all right? But it is... The way that you want to read this is, and this is how I wrote it, is every single word that's written in there, right, is intentional. Some of them might be grammatical errors, but that's okay. Don't judge. It's all intentional. It's a very personal, it's a very sort of light read. I like to write like I talk, like I'm talking to you, not at you, right, or just in generalities. It's like I'm trying to create a personal relationship with you as I'm writing this book, and just really helping you along on the journey. Now, everything that I wrote in this book, every single thing that I wrote in this book is based off of my observations, having studied, having taken, studied, prepared for, analyzed, taught over 100 ACT exams, like actual ACT exams, which equates to over 7,500 questions, right, for the ACT English section. So the way that you want to read this is, hey, JinTeacher, right, wrote this because he observed something on the ACT test that's going to help, and he knows that this information that he wrote is going to help you to get that type of question correct. That's basically how you want to approach your mindset when you're reading this book. Okay? That's all. Is just think about everything that you learn here is going to help you out in some way on the actual test. You might not know it yet, and it might not help you on every single test, right? But out of the 100 exams, the 7,500 plus questions, right? It's in there somewhere, right? Is all, so that's why I'm saying, but I couldn't put everything in there because there's just too many things. The ACT is, especially the English section, they teach more concepts, but it's just more surface level stuff, right? So you have to know a lot more about a lot of different things, like even adverbs and adjectives, comparison words, right? Things like that. Even the spelling of it, right? More than, THAN or THEN. But it's more superficial, but you just have a lot more that you have to learn. So it's impossible for me to write 100% of everything that I've seen, because I don't think that it's not necessary. It'll be a waste of your time if you do that, though, right? But I think these are the sort of most important things, right, that I've seen kind of show up again and again, multiple times. Not every single time, but I'd say if I've seen it at least 3 times, boom, I put it in there, is it? So that's how you want to approach that book, though. Okay, so that'll be my gift to you for signing up. Also, as an added bonus, you can book a free consultation with me, right, where I'll help you to analyze your results, to create that personalized study roadmap, and answer any questions you might have about the test, though. Okay? So guys, just make sure to subscribe to the channel. Really, it helps me out a lot. It helps me to kind of reach more people like you, right, who wants to become a better version of themselves and try to see just like how much of their potential they can actualize on the ACT, right, or the SAT. So it really, really helps me to find more students like you who are high achievers, who want to get better and who are willing to do the work. Right? So please help me out in that sense. It really does mean a lot. I guess that's my only ask. And just sign up in that link in the description below, you guys. So here's the key. So after you build experience, right, take these diagnostic exams, what's going to happen is think about your knowledge base as leveling up. So here you're going to be able to level up your knowledge base with an extra layer of knowledge. And so now with this extra layer of knowledge, you can actually make a more informed and precise decision, right? Because why? You'll actually have had experience. You'll actually have had the feeling of taking these tests. So now you know not just like intellectually what these tests consist of, like the foundational knowledge stuff, but you actually have the experience of going through it. Oh man, the ACT felt super, super, super rushed for me. I don't know if I'll be able to kind of concentrate on that. I wasn't able to answer 45 questions out of 75 for ACT English. Right? Or maybe it might be the opposite. Man, the math section for the ACT was a breeze. I finished the test and had 15 minutes left over. Oh, the science section is so fun. Oh, the science section kind of feels like a reading section, right? So this is that sort of like extra layer of knowledge that you have. It's called experiential knowledge, not just intellectual knowledge, right? Intellectual knowledge, you kind of like, it's in your head somewhere, but it's the experiential knowledge, right? That's much more important that can help you to make a more precise decision, okay? And that's the power of this next step, is building experience. It's huge, which is why I stress so much that you take this stuff seriously, you guys, okay? Now, this is the point where you want to refine your knowledge, right? So having taken both diagnostic tests, you'll have a better feel for which test better suits you. Now, here's one really helpful tip for you guys is to consider, right? Is don't base your decision about which test to take only on the scores of your level test. Okay, so for example, let's say you score a 1200 on the SAT. So your SAT diagnostic test is a 1200, 1200. And that score converts to a 25 on the ACT, but your actual diagnostic score on the ACT is only a 20. Okay, so comparatively, you did worse on the ACT than you did on the SAT, right? 1200 here, which is a 25 on the ACT, but your actual ACT score was a 20. Now, here, the point is, you don't want to just base your decision on that score, right? That score, it doesn't automatically mean, right, that you should sign up for the SAT. Right now, that level of thinking is way, way, way too simplistic. Right, and here's why. So the ACT is naturally going to feel faster than the SAT because there's simply less time on average to solve an ACT question, right? So for example, on the ACT English section, you have 75 questions to answer in just 45 minutes, right? So it gives you only have, in 35 minutes, so you only have about 36 seconds per question, right, to solve an ACT English question, okay? Versus on the ERW, you'll have about a minute or so, right? So it's just going to feel faster on the ACT than the SAT. Now, a lot of kids, what's going to happen is a lot of kids tell me they feel really rushed, right? Like almost like they're out of control. Like they're just scrambling, right? They're just like scrambling and they don't know what they're doing. They're like a chicken with its head cut off when taking the ACT for the very first time. So if you have no experience with the ACT and you take a diagnostic test, it could feel like this. Like, what am I doing? Oh my goodness, right? Like that's what's going to happen. A lot of students have that experience, okay? And many students also, they're not able to finish a big chunk of the questions on time. And again, that's because you guys, the ACT is more of a speed test, right? While the SAT is more of a thinking test, right? Which just means that in order to solve an SAT question correctly, you'll have to take extra steps in your logic and your reasoning to get that question correct. Okay, now, guys, here's the thing. Speed can be trained, right? Write that down, is speed can be trained, but so can logic. Okay, so logic and speed, they can both be trained. right? Not just learned or acquired, but trained. You have to train yourself, right, to be able to answer questions more efficiently. You have to train yourself to be able to think more logically and systematically. Okay, now with speed comes with skill, okay, not simply by going faster, right? And logic can be trained simply by learning the strategies for each type of question and executing a series of steps systematically, like step by step, right, to arrive at the correct answer. So this is all to say, you guys, that comparing scores isn't the only thing to consider when deciding which test to prepare for, right? So you have to think deeply about which test you can truly improve on, right? So some students, for example, have massive troubles with logic and reasoning. So it might take them, like, I believe that anyone can learn anything if you have enough time, you put enough effort, right, and energy into it, and you have the right attitude. I truly believe deep down at the core of my being that you can learn anything, but, right, it might take you a lot longer, right? So there are some students who are just naturally a little bit more inclined, right, with reasoning or thinking. Maybe it's because their parents, right, kind of read to them a lot, maybe wrote essays and ran out the essays to them while you were in your mom's, tummy, whatever it might be. But there are some students who have massive troubles with logic and reasoning. So in this case, these students, it might take them like a year or 2 years, right, to get better at logic and reasoning, right? On the other hand, you might have students who have major, major troubles managing their emotions and controlling their focus, especially under time pressure, right? I've had students who, and not all of my students, right, will get that 99th percentile or over a 90th percentile. Like, there are some students, of course, who struggle, which just is a great reminder for me to tell me that I have to work that much harder, right, to really help these kids out. And I'm committed to it. But I've dealt with some students who had such trouble managing their anxiety. Like, test anxiety is a real thing. They've had so much trouble with it, right? So, like, the thing is, during the practice test that they were taking with me before class, is they were able to, like, score like 4 wrong or 3 wrong on the ACT English section, right? Or 2 wrong on the SAT writing section, right? This is before the digital SAT. But on the actual test, right, they would miss, like, their ACT English score, like, they might miss like 11 or 12, and then on the SAT writing, they might miss like 6 or 7, and that's like, it's not big. And the students tell me that they felt like the questions were harder, but that's not true. It's just that these students aren't able to manage their emotions, right? And they're not able to control their focus. So they're rushing somehow. Because I'm not with them on the actual test. I'm not sitting with them, next to them and observing them. And actually, I don't have EKGs on their brains, and I can't measure their brain waves to see if they're calm and relaxed or stressed in that fight or flight response. But I do know that they have troubles with this. Kind of tell, right? Students who are a little bit more emotionally sensitive, you can kind of tell, who don't have that sort of strength of mind, right, to be able to deal with pressure, kind of fold or crumble. Like, these are also things that can be trained, but again, some students are just more naturally inclined, right, to be able to do that better than others, right? So just kind of know where you are. And again, just be honest with yourself though, right? Is it? Now, a helpful thing to consider is whether you believe that it was simply the initial shock of the ACT that caused you to rush and panic, right? And if you took that test again, you could manage your time better. Right, that could be like a one simple fix, because the majority of you are going to feel super rushed, right? So this tip can kind of help. Ask yourself, hey, was it just because, like, I was completely shocked and didn't know what was going on, right? Or is it because of something else, right? And do you believe that if you take the ACT again and you kind of know what that time kind of feels like, you're going to be able to score much better, right? Because the difficulty of the questions weren't that difficult. It was just that you were in such shock, right, that your scores turned out the way that they did. So these are just some things to kind of think about, you guys, right? Also, remember that this is just a starting point. Now, with the proper guidance and training, I've seen students boost their scores, like rocket ship boost their scores to the 99th percentile in just weeks. Be surprised. I had a student who was getting like a 530 on the SAT writing section, or the SAT sort of verbal section, but then they would get they got like a 700, right? 730 on the actual test, right? A kid who was scoring like a 20 on the ACT English section got a 35 right on the actual test in the English section in just 3 weeks. So this is all to say, you guys, I've seen students boost their scores in just weeks. Some students, it takes them months, right? I'm just saying that there are some, right, that can do this. Now, of course, like, that's all to say, like, it's not that it's impossible for you if you struggle with logic that you'll never get better at it, right? But this is just something that you have to kind of decide for yourself, right, is all, okay? And don't be in this sort of state of like, I'm not sure. Just make a decision and then just go with it, okay? That's what you got to do. But think about it beforehand, okay? Now, some deep thinking, there's that T word again, right? Some deep thinking and introspection is required, but it's always better. It's always better to think through this stuff before preparing for a test, right? Rather than waiting and finding out a month into a test prep course that you made the wrong choice, or it's better to think through this stuff beforehand than simply listening to a random person's advice about which test you should take. Because guys, think about it. It doesn't make any sense to me, right, that you would listen to somebody who doesn't know you, right, who decides which test you got to take on one attempt. Right, I hope you can agree on that, right? You can consider this person's opinion, but you don't just want to like blindly accept it, right? Like, you want to take control. Guys, the whole message of this video is take control of your life, right? Like, you have to own your life. If you really want these amazing results, you're going to have to take responsibility and ownership for it, though, right? I'll give you all this I'll help you guys out. I'll help you guys out with the path, but you're going to have to take the steps, though, right? So do this work, you guys. Doing a lot of this work ahead of time is going to set you guys up for massive success down the road. I promise you guys. Okay? So the third step in your decision-making framework is to seek out and set up meaningful communications. Now, guys, this information is this is meant for you, but also your parents, right? Because I do know that the parents are going to be the ones paying for whatever test prep resources that you're going to sign up for. But it's important that you guys also have this information too, so that, you guys can, because it's ultimately your education, right? So the more knowledge that you guys have, don't just pawn off all the knowledge pieces to your parents, right? Don't have them learn everything and then just relay it to you, because there's going to be things that get lost in the mix. I promise you it always happens, right? So this information that I'm going to share with you is, if you don't have parents who like speak the language as well as you do, then you watch this and then you kind of relay it to them, or you watch it with them and just kind of tell them, oh, hey, this is what he's talking about here. This is what he's talking about here, so on and so forth, though. Okay. So I'm really doing this for you guys, ultimately the students, but I also know that I made a separate video for the parents and I talked a lot more slowly. I didn't go all crazy and stuff because I can only go crazy in front of the students. But I do know that this information also can be helpful to you, the students, as well, right? So just take this for what it is, and then you can also relate it to your parents, right, as needed. So here, the thing that I want to emphasize, you guys, that's really important is that you have to do a little bit of research about the who, right? So make sure that when you're talking to people, right, you really consider who it is you're talking to. I've seen too many students and parents focus on the wrong things, right? Like, what does the curriculum look like, right? Which test prep materials are they using, right? Which resources are they using? How long are the classes? How much does it cost, right? How often do they meet? What times do they meet? How many students are in a class? How many teachers are teaching it, right? So on and so forth. Where did the teachers go to school, right? All of these sort of questions I've seen. Because these details are important, don't get me wrong, but they're not the most critical factor. All right, so let me explain. So the who, what I mean by the who is, or who I mean by the who is the person that's actually teaching and leading you, right? That who makes all the difference in the world, right? So you can have the best curriculum in the world, but if the person teaching it doesn't understand how to communicate effectively or connect with you, the students, the material is not going to matter at all. right? So imagine a teacher, right, who uses these books that are created by like Harvard, professors, right, who studied for decades the SAT, but then the teacher doesn't care about you or your score, right? Is that going to motivate you to want to learn this stuff? Probably not, right? On the other hand, the right teacher, the right who can take an average curriculum and make it exceptional and outstanding because they know how to adapt it to fit it to your needs, right? On the other hand, right, a poor teacher, and by poor I mean a bad teacher, and maybe by bad I mean not smart, right? But bad like they don't care, right? They're just in it for the money. Like these kind of guys, egotistical. I've worked with teachers, guys. I've seen over 200 teachers come and go in my 14 years in Korea. Over 200 teachers come and go, getting hired and fired, right? And the number one reason that I just based on my observations, my humble opinion, is that teachers, they have egos. Teachers have huge egos. They think they know everything, right? They think they know everything. I'm the first one to tell you that I've fallen into that trap, but I've learned to let go of that ego. Right? And I tell students the very first day of classes, guys, I know a lot about this stuff. I don't know everything. I'm not going to stand here in front of you, right, and just BS you. That's not my style. I don't like how I feel. I don't like how I feel about myself when I do that, when I've done that. So I just don't do it. Completely transparent, right? So I don't know everything about the English language. It's impossible to, right? But I work really hard at this stuff. I prepare extremely well. And if I don't know something, I'll always tell you guys that I don't know it, but I can find out the answer for you. I'm good with that, right? But most teachers, I think that they have troubles dealing with their egos, right? So there's a saying that there are teachers who, if you've taught for 10 years, right? Let's say that we have 10 teachers who taught for 10 years, right? So we have some teachers who have actually 10 years of experience teaching, right? And we have other teachers, even though they've taught for 10 years, they only have 1 year of teaching experience. And so what does that mean? Certain teachers, a lot of teachers, call it laziness, I call it ego, is teachers just prepare the material or the curriculum once, and they just use the same material over and over and over and over and over again for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, They never refine it or make it better. Maybe after 10 years, you can use the same sort of stuff and maybe just kind of tweak things a little bit. But if you're only doing it once and then you're using the same thing, you're repeating that same thing over and over and over again, right? You're not really growing much as a teacher. Because for me, and I'm not saying that I'm better than everybody. No, it's not. I just care about the kids. I care about you guys. I just want you guys to maximize your potential, because really seeing you guys make progress really fulfills me. It's not about your scores or my ego. It's just truly like gives me true happiness and joy. That's really it. And it really makes me feel like I'm making a contribution, right? And that's from a place of like love and contribution, and growth, right? Not out of ego or the need for me to be significant or money, nothing like that. But every single semester that I remember teaching in Korea, I would always try out different things. And that's because I place students in 2 different buckets. If you guys saw my very first video, I talk about this. It's either the knowing bucket or the not knowing bucket. That's how I kind of categorize students. Either you know it, or you don't know it, right? And so my job is to try to take as many students out in this bucket, the not know bucket, and put them into the knowing bucket, right? So I'm trying all sorts of different things, right? I'm yelling at you guys right now, right? But that's just how I talk to my kids. It's just all I love. It's just all joyful and playful. You guys can feel that for sure, right? Nothing is super fearful or intimidating. It's not. I'm the last person you'd be intimidated by, I imagine. But that's all to kind of say, you guys, that that's what I mean by kind of bad teachers, is that they can take the best curriculum and they can fail to make any sort of impact, is all. Plus, chances are that the right who will have the right materials and the right curriculum anyways, right? Also, you guys, when considering price, it's helpful to think about value, not cost. So think about how much this cost. Think about the value that you're getting from it. It's a huge mistake that so many people make in this world. When they just look at a price tag, they think cost. You got to train yourself to think value, So imagine if you have something that costs $1,000, right? whose price tag is $1,000, you're thinking, oh, that's expensive. But another person sees it and says, I wonder what the value is of this. If it's extremely good quality and it's 10 times the value that you pay for it, isn't it worth it? Right, so don't just judge something at a superficial level, you guys. You have to think about value. Like, what are you getting from it is all. Okay, and here's the point that ties into test prep really smoothly. So I've worked with students who study for the ACT after 2 years of studying. So these students attended lower cost academies, so cheap academies in terms of cost, right? Not attitude, in terms of cost. But they actually ended up wasting a lot more money and even more time, right? Because they weren't being taught by the right people, right? So the idea is that these cheap academies, right, they're not going to pay their teachers very much, right? So the teachers aren't going to be willing to work very hard, or they're not going to be able to hire high quality teachers, right? Because the cost per student isn't very high. It's on the much, much, much lower end. So you're kind of paying, you're getting what you're paying for in terms of quality or value. Right. So think about it. Even though let's say you have another program, but has much, much higher quality teachers, but it costs let's say it costs $2,000. So it costs double. Right. But the thing is, though, that these guys, the $2,000 guys, right, can get you your scores within 6 months. So you reach your target score within 6 months. This lower cost guy, right, you could go one summer, which is $1,000. Or you could go in the winter time, which might be another $500. You still don't get your score. And then your teachers are just saying, it's your fault. The material is great. These are actual test questions. You got to work harder. They can make all of the excuses in the world. Then you go another summer and you still don't get your score. You end up wasting a lot more money, right? You're actually you're spending $2,500 and you still haven't gotten your score and you're wasting a lot more time. Which is, I think, the most valuable or the most important thing for most of you guys is your time. You don't want to be spending 2.5 years, right, studying for this test that can be done within a year. Depending on where your starting point is and what your target score is, it might take a little bit longer, might take a little bit less. It all depends on you and your starting point. But my point is, you guys, is you really want to think about value that you're getting. I've seen so many people fall into the trap of just paying for something because it's cheap, or not paying for something because they think it's expensive is all, right? So you want to think about the value that you're getting, which all ties back into who's teaching this stuff in the first place. Not how nice the place looks, right? But who's actually teaching it is all. Okay? Now, another thing, you guys, is, I think I've already kind of hit on this point, is the right who can actually help you to save money and time. They're just that much more effective in terms of their teaching is all. They know the roadmap, right? They know how to personalize it to fit your needs. They know how to adapt it when things go wrong. They know how to change things, right? When things need to be changed. Okay. Now, another thing to note here when you're setting up meaningful conversations is to avoid the wrong people, right? So wrong people, in my opinion, are business owners who don't have any teaching experience, right? So these business owners, they only have business experience, no teaching experience. And if they don't have any teaching experience, it means that they don't have any learning experience, right? So the path to learning, right, to get a top 1% score, these business owners don't have. So how can they sit in front of you and tell you what you should do and what your learning path should be? It doesn't make any sense to me. It blows my mind, right? That these business owners would be the only ones that people will talk to, right, before they decide on which type of test prep course they should take. Okay, so these business people, they may be good at talking and making sales, right? But their main focus is profits. That's what majority of business owners are, right? Is that they're profit-driven people is all. Now, guys, I've worked for business owners who pushed selling their ACT program because it only had a few students in it, right? So for example, like the SAT program was like full, and then they only had like 2 kids out of a maximum of like 20. And so let's say that you had these random people who kind of came in and got consultations. Well, the business owner was saying, well, hey, you can do the ACT, you can do the ACT, you can do the ACT. Just because the ACTs, had ACT programs only had a few kids. I've witnessed that. I've also witnessed business owners place students in the wrong level classes, right? Because the lower level class was almost at capacity, right? So this kid should have been actually in a lower level, but then the lower level class is already full. So the business owner said, hey, why don't we just put him in the higher level class? We can come up with a reason, right? And that's my point here is the bottom line is that business owners are focused on the bottom line. Okay, but you might be thinking, well, Jin, you said that you're a business owner. No, I said I'm launching an online education company, guys. My identity is as a teacher. That's where my heart is. That's where my passion is. But I call myself an entrepreneurial teacher. So I have to study the business side of things because I don't know it. And I'm sick and tired of working for other people, these business owners, right, who think like this, is all. So I need to learn the business side of things so that I can really tap into my true passion, which is going to be the teaching. Like that's who I identify as, right? In terms of my professional identity, is that I'm a passionate teacher. I'm a mission-driven teacher, but I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to become an entrepreneurial one, right? That's the idea. Now, of course, you guys, you and your mom, you and your dad will most likely talk to a business owner, but they don't have to be the only person you speak with. Right? Like ask to speak with the teacher, and make sure that if you're allowed to, right, make sure that you come prepared with a list of questions to ask that teacher. And this list should really focus on their teaching philosophy, right? So there's a list of questions that I created and their implications, which will give you a clear sense of what type of teacher you're dealing with, like what that teacher cares about, what that teacher's sort of teaching style is, methodology is, and whether that teacher will be a good fit for you. Okay. And if the business owner won't let you talk to the teachers themselves, which most won't, because teachers are busy, right? They are busy, and the business owners don't want to put that burden on the teachers. A lot of teachers don't like talking to and giving these consultations. Here's another valuable tip. And this tip actually, I think, is better than, right, talking to the teachers. And this tip almost always works, because it gives you an insight into the quality of the programs and the teachers themselves. Okay? So listen closely to this one. So ask to preview the class. Ask for some sort of trial to a class or even part of a class, right? And this is why this tip is gold. So if the business owner isn't truly confident in his programs, he won't let you sit in on a class, right? Think about it. Why would if a business owner were truly confident, he'd be like, yeah, of course, go ahead and sit in, right? You can even sit in for one for free because he knows inside, like, hey, like these kids, even if 50% of the kids, right, sign up, like the business owner is making huge profits, right? He's making good on his return, so of course there's no loss. It's just good, but if he's not confident, right, if he doesn't let you sit in on a class, you got to wonder, I wonder why, right? And the underlying reason maybe is there's a lack of confidence in something, right? Maybe there's a lack of confidence somewhere is all, Now, you got to think about this. If this happens to you, think about it like this. It's absolutely no loss for you. It's zero loss for you. It's actually a win for you because you now know, right, that is most likely not a quality program. Okay. Now, if the owners, and you've also saved yourself a bunch of time, right? So if the owner says it's against the teacher's policy, maybe you got to think to yourself, right? So is that the kind of teacher that you really want to work with anyways? A teacher that doesn't want, students, that doesn't want to impact students' lives, right? That doesn't want to have a student sit in to see if, right, they're a good fit, right? If that's against a teacher's policy, I don't know about you, right? Like, I don't know if that's the type of teacher that I want to work with, is all. Right? So personally speaking, and I know a lot of amazing teachers too who love it, who get so excited, right? When they're like, oh my gosh, like we have these new kids that are going to preview my class. I got to step up, right? I got to show up, right? Is all. I'm always excited to have these new students preview my class. It's an opportunity, because for me, it's an opportunity to showcase, right, my stuff, to learn a little bit more about myself, to become a little bit better as a teacher, and to even try to maybe make a lasting impression on a student. Who knows, right? On the other hand, teachers who don't want this, right? They might either be like profit driven. They see, dollar signs over kids. They might not be confident in their abilities, right? They might not prioritize students or people, right? They might prioritize something else, like their ego or something, or they might be too focused on, not wanting to bruise their egos, right? And again, this stuff just doesn't make any sense to me, you guys. I mean, I get it. Like, I understand it. I just don't know why. I do know why. It's just because we're afraid. I've been there. I have. But, and this is something that's super, super important. And if there are teachers who are listening, oh man, like them, and if you resonate with this, like, contact me. I believe, this is my sort of hallucination, is that good teachers understand that they're not going to be the right fit for everyone. And they accept it, right? Like, they accept the fact that some students won't like them. Like, you got to accept that, right? And you're cool about it. You just know, right? Some teachers, and I fall into this trap at the beginning of my teaching career. Like, I wanted everyone to like me. And if everyone didn't like me, then I felt bad about myself. I felt like ashamed of myself. I felt like I was doing something wrong, or I was a bad person or something, or I wasn't cool. And that's just all the ego. It really is. Like, I think the best teachers, like, they understand that they're not going to be the right fit for everyone. They might want to be, and that's amazing, right? And they might not be yet. And they accept that, right? Like, they truly accept it, and they're totally okay with it. Ultimately, you guys, the whole point is, like, the right who, they understand at the core of who they are, it's not about them, right? It's about finding and attracting the right types of kids. The students who like the teacher and their teaching style and feel like they could truly benefit from their class. And for me personally, I don't want kids in my class who don't want to learn from me. Would you? Right? If you were a teacher, right, wouldn't you want to have actually people, right, who actually want to learn from you, who actually like your style and actually feel like and believe that you have something valuable to offer? I would, right? So that's the thing, you guys. Right? Like, is if you're able to sit in on this class, right? If you're able to sit in on a class, it's going to help you out tremendously, right? It's going to give you an opportunity to see if you like that teacher and their teaching styles. I've done this for years, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I think I kind of take it as like an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity, not as a threat, but as an opportunity to be like, ooh. Right? Like, there's one more person whose life I can kind of affect, impact, help out, advance, right? And yeah, like, of course, like, no teacher likes it when kids don't like them, right? I've learned to kind of train myself to be like, hey, that's an opportunity, right? For me to climb this uphill battle to get this person on my side, is all. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I get super pissed off at these kids who be like, "Hey, get out of my class, man! Like, what are you doing here?" Right? I've been there, of course. But if a kid doesn't like you, he doesn't like you, right? And you can't control. I realize I can't control what I can't control. Only thing I can control is my attitude and the way that how I show up, right? Is all. So that's just how I look at it, and that's the sort of realization that a lot of the best teachers are going to have. Is that not everybody's going to like them, but that's okay. The whole reason I'm building this online education company is to attract people, a certain type of people. I'm not trying to affect everybody in this world, right? But I'm trying to reach a certain type of person. The person who wants to get better, the person who wants to try hard. That's it. I guess the person who's like got a good positive attitude too. You got to be nice. You got to be respectful and appreciate the learning. Right, of course. I truly believe, right, that you got to respect your teachers. You got it. But anyways, so being able to sit in on a class is also going to help you to determine whether the classroom culture is one that you'll feel comfortable in and want to be a part of. Right? So if not, then no big deal. would you want to be a part of like a toxic in classroom environment or culture? Right? Would you want to be a part of a classroom where the teacher, teaches based off of fear and intimidation, right? Or the teacher belittles and condescends you, saying, you're not good enough. Like, why can't you ever do this correctly? What's wrong with you? I wouldn't. I'm going to feel crushed, right? Is all. So, if you're not able to sit in on that class, no big deal. A smart business owner will understand this, and they'll recognize that in the long term, it'll be better for business, because having a few toxic students, right, who don't like being there is just going to ruin the experience for everyone, for everyone else as well. Okay. So by preparing your meetings in this way, right, so we do a little research on the who, all right, as well as ask to sit in on a class. If you have to pay, maybe they'll give you a discount, like a half off discount or something like that. Other places will give you like a free sort of trial or part of a class, but see if you can do that, right? And I would take advantage of that. It's a very, very smart move on your part. Like you guys got to care about your education more than you care about what other people think of you. Who cares if someone thinks that you're cheap if you ask to sit in on a class for free? Because to a certain degree, like you have to not be selfish with your education, but you have to prioritize your education above your feelings. Because you're here to learn, right? You're here to maximize your potential, and this is going to help you guys do that. Okay, so step number 3, we got set up. We'll seek out and set up meaningful communications. By following a couple of these tips that I gave you guys in this step, you're going to get a lot out of this step. Yeah, in terms of helping you guys decide, right, which test is better for you. So the 4th and final step in your decision-making framework is to decide on a test and commit to it. Now, guys, this step is crucial because it marks the beginning of a focused and dedicated journey. So now that you've gathered foundational knowledge, built experience with diagnostics, and had meaningful conversations, it's time to make a decision. Right? So remember that the SAT and ACT are considered equally across all schools that accept both tests. In other words, there is no test that is favored over the other. Now, the most important idea that you must keep in mind that this is your decision, right? No one else's. Right, so don't make a decision because someone else said it was a good idea, and don't doubt yourself or change your mind because someone else said it was a dumb choice. No matter who that person is, right? That person's opinion does not matter. The only person whose opinion matters is yours. And of course, if you really value and respect your mom, if she's helping you out with all of this, then of course hers too, right? But keep your circle really close when it comes to this decision. It's really, really important. Okay, the only person that you got to believe is you or right, your mom. And you really have to own it, you guys. So once you decide, own it. It's yours, right? You have to make it yours. Up until then, this stuff is not yours yet. You really have to get to a place, right, where you take full ownership of it. Now, remember that no one else can make you do anything. It's ultimately your choice. And there's tremendous freedom and power in the ability to choose. Now, of course, you can consider other people's opinions, right? But you must get to a place where you have absolute certainty that this is the right choice for you. And get that feeling into your body, right? That this is the step or the right test that you got to take, prepare for. Okay. Now, what really helps here is to come up with a list of compelling reasons as to why the SAT or ACT is the right test for you to take. So compelling reasons, right? So the word compelling is important, not just any reasons or boring reasons or, simple reasons or dull reasons or other people's reasons, but compelling reasons, right? Compelling means it actually is going to pull you to do that thing. It compels you. It influences you, right, to kind of do it is all, okay? It doesn't force you, it attracts you, it pulls you in. It doesn't force you or push you to do it, but it pulls you in because it's that compelling and attractive, right? So compelling reasons are things like, hey, I know and here you're not, it's not an ego thing. It's not a pride thing, right? It's just really just objectively, right? Like, right, that these are your strengths. So you could say something like, I know I'm extremely gifted in math and science, and those sections make up for 50% of the score on the ACT, right? Plus, I can gain the skill to improve my speed on the English and the reading sections. So sure, it might take some time to get there, but I totally believe in myself and I'm willing to put in the effort. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So that's an example of a compelling reason though, right? And it's going to be different for each and every one of you, but these are your words, right? These are your reasons, and these reasons have to compel you. So reasons that are not compelling might sound like this. Oh, my friend told me that she's taking the SAT, so I guess I'll do that. Like, we're friends and we get the same grades, so I think I'll be okay, right? Or something like, oh, the SAT is more popular than the ACT, so I'll just do that test, or something like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll just flip a coin. And are these reasons? My mom told me to do it. Oh, my brother did it, so that's why I'll do it. Now, like, those reasons aren't yours, right? They're not coming from within you, like internally. These are more like outward-facing reasons. So you got to make sure, you guys, to really think about the reasons as to why this test is good for you. For you. So look inward, right? And think about it is all. Okay? So the reason you want to have a list of compelling reasons is that there are going to be times when you will be tested. So this is guaranteed whenever you do anything that's meaningful and worthwhile. So make sure that you take some time to write the reasons down. Keep a little journal of it. Yeah, these reasons should make you feel strong and good. And then your job is to just trust them, like own them is all. Okay? If somebody attacks you, hey, just brush it off, right? Brush it off. Let that sort of dissolve. Let it go. Let them do what they want. You can't control them. Let them say what they want to say. So you have this force field around you, right? With this list of compelling reasons. You've done so much of this work, right? They don't know what you've done ahead of time, right? So just keep that in mind. Have your list of compelling reasons. And this is all the stuff that, as to why you want to do this, why you want to choose this test. So once you've done that, once you've made your decision, here's where you want to commit, right? Commitment, that word commitment is 100%. You got to play full out. Because if you want to have top 1% results, right, you have to be willing to do, right, what the 99% aren't willing to do, right? One of the biggest sort of flaws, or one of the biggest stumbling blocks that a lot of the people who don't achieve, right, what they want to achieve, is that they're not fully committed. They might say that they are, but they're not really. Their actions tell another story, right? So committing to a single test here, you guys, is going to allow you to fully focus on, right, that test. Not to waver back and forth, right, between, oh, well, should I do this or should I do that? Hey, once you pick a test, you're committed to it though. Okay, so remember this point, you guys. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. Where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? So what you focus on, you're going to get, right? So if your focus is bouncing back and forth between SAT, ACT, SAT, ACT, while you're studying for the SAT, right? How likely do you think it is that you're going to be able to get a good score? Probably not, right? Because in the back of your mind, you have doubt. You're not fully committed, right? So you have to be able to control and direct your focus to where you want it to go. So switching between tests or second guessing the decision is the definition of split focus and distraction, right? Distraction is split focus, right? Full focus, right? Full awareness, single pointed awareness, right? Is full focus. But when you're bouncing back and forth, right? Your focus or your attention is split. And that's what distraction is, And it can lead to confusion, and it can really lead to decreased motivation and effort, right? Which is why you want to have compelling reasons. Okay, now, here's a little tip for you. Here's a little story, I guess, right? And I guess it can be kind of like a tip, is, well, when committing to this plan, remember the idea of burn the ships. Remember this quote, burn the ships. So this concept originates from a historical event where a commander, he landed his men on enemy shores, and he ordered his men to burn all of the ships, right? So this left the guys with no option but to succeed or perish, to die. I'm not saying that you're going to die, but you get the idea, right? So when you commit to a test, right, your job is to burn the ships, right? Just like burn the other option, right? When it comes to your test prep journey, this means eliminating any thoughts of retreat or switching tests halfway through, at least for a year, right? But you got to commit to it and do the work, right? So by fully committing to one test, you can focus all your energy on mastering that test without distraction or doubt, right? So burning the ships is really about creating this environment where the only path is forward, towards your progress, your improvement, and your success, right? You have to have faith here. You have to believe in yourself and your ability that you can get better, okay? You don't have to succeed on the very first test. It's okay. Like, a lot of students don't get the score that they want on the very first try. Totally normal. It's okay, right? Temper your expectations. Don't do this and your life will change. Throughout your test prep journey, don't blame, don't get upset, don't complain, don't judge yourself, right? Just let go of any and all expectations and just approach this stuff with learning, right, is all. Okay? This stuff is hard and you're going to have bumps along the way, right? So instead, you should really approach this entire test prep journey with a sense of curiosity and just focus on learning. You're here to learn, right? Of course, encourage yourself, right? Support yourself, like, be solution oriented, stay positive. A lot of you guys have a lot of amazing parents, right? Who love on you and support you and believe in you, right? You can lean on them if you need to, it's okay, is all. Also, don't hesitate to seek any additional support if you need it, right? Whether it's enrolling in a test prep class, hiring a tutor, or joining a study group, having external support, having that sort of supportive environment can provide structure and motivation, right? So make sure that support system aligns with your needs and the test that you're preparing for. Because the right environment, especially the right social environment, you surround yourself with the right group of people, that can make all the difference in the world for you, right? So being surrounded by like-minded people who support each other, who work extremely hard, all of that stuff can really inspire you to want to get better. And so key tip here is avoid environments where it's all about toxic competition, not healthy competition, but toxic competition. Toxic competition is the idea of, I got to do better than this guy, right? Because I'm better than him, because he sucks, right? Because he's not as tall as I am. I don't know what, right? I don't like the way that he gets worse grades than me in school. Like, I do better than him at school, whatever it might be, but that's toxic. Healthy competition is you are trying to see, I think personally, healthy competition is two things. One is the only person you're competing with is yourself. Okay? You're not competing with anyone else. Not your teachers, not your parents, not other students in the class, right? Or the community. You're only competing against yourself. And the idea is you want to be a little bit better than you were the day before. Okay? And the reason why is, guys, when you compare yourself to other people, only bad results will happen, right? So here's why. So if you want to be the best, what'll happen is you'll surround yourself with people who are dumber than you, just so that you feel significant, right? Oh, I'm the best. All of these guys are dumb, right? And they all look up to you. Well, so what, right? Also, if you have this attitude of like wanting to look cool or wanting to be like the smartest person in the room, not only are not only are you going to put yourself in environments where the people around you are dumber than you, right? But you're also going to want to shoot. So here's the fix, Rena. What I think we have to do is we have to start at, oh geez. I think it's going to be the second point, right? If you want to be the best, I'll start from there, okay? So 2 is if you want to look cool and, be the smartest person in the room, the other thing that'll happen is you'll never learn. If you're only surrounding yourself with people who are not as smart as you, you're not going to grow. And really the purpose of life is progress, right? It's not the achievement and having all of the things. It's not to look cool and be the smartest person, right? The purpose of life is for growth and progress. That's what true fulfillment is, so I would recommend you guys, competing only with yourself. The other reason why you want to not compete with other people is you have no idea what their starting points are, right? What if you're competing with a person who already studied for 2 years for the SAT? Now you're in this same course or same environment with them. You're going to feel like a failure. Maybe you're just getting started. Right? Or maybe you're the one who has a year under your belt and you're competing with another person who's studying the SAT for the first time and who just moved to America and learning the English language, right? Only 6 months into living there. Right? Are those really the types of people that you want to compete against? Not at all, right? Guys, this test is as much a test of your psychology as it is a test of your actual intellect, right? So be smart about it, be psychological, be strategic about it, be mindful about it, and just compete against yourself. There are ways to kind of create healthy competition based out of love and fun, right? None of it's toxic, I'm better than you type of attitude. It's just really we're just all trying to get better. We're all trying to support each other. We're all trying to help each other get better is all. That's the type of, healthy competition environment that you want to seek out is all. And you can feel it though, is it? Also, you guys, make sure that you avoid these types of environments where you avoid teachers who use fear, discouragement, and intimidations to teach, right? So think about it, and if you're watching this with your parents, great. If you're teaching this to your parents, even better. So this example that I'll use is one that's adults will face, right? But I'm sure you guys have had classes in this sort of similar situation. But if we're talking adults and work environments, is imagine, working for a boss, right? Or if you've ever worked for a boss who scared the living heck out of you, right? Or told you how worthless you were or how your work was never good enough. Just substitute boss for teacher. Substitute boss for, parent, or substitute boss for, peer, like your peer group, another student. And so if you've ever had another student or a teacher or some kind of superior to you, right, in terms of just their authority, who just told you you were worthless, you were never good enough, or just always used fear and really played to your insecurities, how did that make you feel? Right? Is that the kind of person that, was that the kind of person that you wanted to work for? Was that the kind of person that you wanted to try your best for? It's the exact same thing, right, in this sort of situations too, when you're seeking, resources and guides, right, high quality teachers. So parents can relate to this with work, yeah, and it's the same thing with students. So remember, you guys, you're just human, right? You're a human being like everyone else, right? And if you've been watching this video up to this point, you're the kind of human who believes that a person can truly transform their life from a state of joy and inspiration, from a state of hope and inspiration. And I know this because that's the basis of this entire video. That's my message to you. All right, so of course, there's going to be bumps and roadblocks along the way. This is always true when you do something that's hard and meaningful. And I definitely categorize standardized tests like the SAT and ACT in that category, right? But we don't have to stay frustrated or paralyzed. We can accept the situation for what it is. We can focus on a solution, can learn to enjoy the process, right? Then we can get back to work, okay? Now, finally, you guys, I want you guys to make sure to celebrate small wins along the way. So once you decide which test to take and commit to it, celebrate that. That's a win, right? Acknowledge all of the work that you put into this and all of the progress that you've made. Think about all that you know. Think about everything more that you know about things, whether it's the test, whether it's the timing, whether it's how to approach meetings, right? Whether it's about yourself, right? Whether it's about your starting point. All of that stuff is progress. It's taking small steps that's advancing you towards the trajectory you want to get to, which is going to be ultimately the goal, the target score that you have, right? And you're going to use that target score to get into that school that you dream of getting into, okay? So I want you guys to celebrate small wins, no matter how small you might think they are, right? So this isn't about like, again, you're going to lose motivation. It's the opposite. Right. So when you celebrate these small wins, like you want to actually work harder. It's going to actually want to motivate you to actually want to do the stuff more. Right. So this stuff not only keeps you motivated, but also makes the journey more enjoyable and a heck of a lot less stressful. And guys, really, life is too short, right, to live in a state of stress and suffering. Right. Life is too short. You know, you got to enjoy the ride. Right. You really enjoy this entire process. It's not easy. You know, but I'm trying to simplify it. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you, right, to achieve the goals that you want to achieve on this test. Now, deciding on the right test and committing to it is a significant step in your educational journey. So by following this decision-making framework, you guys, you know, so we had foundational knowledge that you want to gather, building experience and refining that knowledge with that extra layer of knowledge about yourself. Right? We have setting up meaningful conversations. Now we have deciding and committing to a test. That's the 4-step framework. By following this framework, you're setting yourself up for success with a clear, focused, and strategic approach. Right? So you're being strategic about this. You know, so if you need more guidance, and I think that's always a great thing. I always have to say that. Some people think the word strategy is like you're being sneaky. No, strategic is being smart. Strategic is being intelligent. Strategic is being wise, right? Like you want to be strategic is all. Like that's what's going to help you guys. That's what's going to help separate you from the 99% of people in this world, right? Who don't think through this stuff in this way, in this order. Now, guys, if you need more guidance or resources, do not hesitate to reach out. I understand this better than a lot of people, and I know that truly the road to success can be lonely, but you don't have to travel it alone. So there are students just like you who've crossed that bridge from where you are to where you want to be. And there are passionate educators and guides who are on a mission to improving the quality of education in this world and increasing the consciousness of education in those around and within it. As I and everyone else in this community would love to have you join our community, and we'd love to support you as all. But it's on you to take that first step. And that first step, you guys, is simply to subscribe to this channel, you know, and stay alert, right, for all the incredible resources that are headed your way. Remember, you guys, to always stay curious, you know, never stop learning, and to always make knowledge yours.